Good morning. Please, can we bring down the music? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're pleased to have you in our presence today. This is such a great honor for us. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation. I would like to apologize for starting late due to certain circumstances beyond our control, but we're about to start now. My name is Tolulokpe Awokunle. My HOP, her name is Barrister Tolulokpe Ajimo. She'll be coming up shortly. But we'd like to start with the opening prayer. Anyone led by the Spirit can please take the opening prayer.
Father, in the name of Jesus, eternal rock of ages, we say thank you this morning for your hand of grace upon everyone. Thank you for safety and thank you for life. Blessed be to your name forever in the name of Jesus. We say thank you for this meeting. Glory and honor be to you in the name of Jesus. Father, Lord, even as we commence, we ask that your Spirit will guide us in the name of Jesus. Help us to deliberate right. Help us to make right decision and take right decision in the name of Jesus. Glorify yourself at the end of this meeting in the name of Jesus. Blessed be to your name forever. In Jesus' precious name we have prayed. Amen.
Thank you so much, sir. He's a representative from Asido Foundation. Okay, moving on, we'll be taking the national anthem. Can we all rise? Thank you so much. We may have our seats. I would like to call on the HOP Community Service Department of JDPC in the person of Barrister Tolulokpe Ajimo. She's going to be recognizing the guests and stakeholders. Please, let's appreciate her, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. And it is our pleasure to welcome you in our midst here in Justice Development and Peace Commission. And under this scheme herein we are seated, the Community Service Program. I will be recognizing the Chief Justice of Oyo State, here in the person of Justice Hehel Akintola. We are still expecting the Deputy Speaker of Oyo State House of Assembly, but hearing, seated with us, is the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Oyo State, in the person of Mr. S.A. Adeoye. Also, our guest speaker for today, though he's not in our midst, he actually forwarded his apologies to everyone seated here, and soonest he's going to be with us. I also recognize the Chief Registrar, though she's not here yet, our Deputy Chief Registrar, Appeal and Magistracy, Probate and Special Duties, and our very own amiable and viable Deputy Chief Registrar for Community Service, in the person of himself, Mr. Hie Hidowu. Please, a round of applause for him, please. Because without him, it will still be a cumbersome task for community service scheme in Oyo State. Despite all other committees that's been set up, but he has been our boss, championing this cause. Also, I will be recognizing our magistrates in the midst, and also the President of the Customary Court of Appeal. And also, I'll be recognizing every other stakeholders here, the CCGGs, MBA, FIDA, EFCC, CASN, and the Director of Social Welfare Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Inclusion. And I will not be forgetting our effervescent CSOs, that is Community Service Officers, who had the administrative wheels behind the movement of this very efficient scheme. So I welcome you all to this workshop, and I pray the good Lord continue to strengthen us onto a viable hand, and so that we can actually have a foreseeable goal and a sustainable goal towards community service scheme in Oyo State. I welcome you once all again. Thank you. I shall be ushering in the chairman of this occasion, who is in this Chief Justice, and the chairman of the Judicial Service Commission of this Space Setter State, who is in person of the Justice Hehel Akintola, for the welcome address. Oh, sorry, please. I shall be welcoming in our very amiable Father Jerome Hajakaye, who is the director of every single activities in Justice Development and Peace Commission, for the welcome address. Father Jerome, thank you.
Barrister Tolu, don't worry, I will not be penalizing you for omitting my name. Good morning, everybody. Your Excellency, the Executive Governor for your state in absentia, the Honorable Deputy Speaker of your state, House of Assembly, Honorable Chief Justice and Chairman of the Judicial Commission, ably represented by Honorable Justice A.L. Akintola, High Court of Justice, Oyo State, the Attorney General represented by Director of Public Prosecution, Oyo State, Mr. S.O. Adeoye, the Registrar, the Chief Registrar, Deputy Registrar of the Community Service Scheme, other Deputy Chief Registrars present, the Controllers of Corrections, the DCRs, President of the Customary Courts of Appeal, our partners from Nigeria Bar Association, FIDA, EFCC, the Nigerian Police, CASN, and others, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the staff and management of Justice, Development, and Peace Commission, Ibadan, I welcome you warmly to this workshop on the issue of community service as alternative sentencing in the administration of justice in Oyo State. I want to first of all sincerely appreciate all our stakeholders and partners for their unflinching support towards the implementation of this community service scheme in Oyo State. It has not been an easy journey, but at least we have tried and we are still trying to do the best we can with the minimal resources available to us. So far, the scheme has committed over 1,000 minor offenders to community service. Offenders also have the opportunity of receiving counseling to ensure their proper formation, and discourage recidivism. This is good, but we can do more and we should do more. The reward for good work is more work. But we cannot do more with less. So the most pressing issue of today's discussions will be funding for community service scheme. We need to be deliberate about this. We need to be intentional. I therefore implore the Deputy Speaker, the entire House of Assembly to focus on the budget presented for the judiciary. The judiciary should solidify our ownership of this scheme and press for the necessary provisions while we beckon on the executive to facilitate the sustainability of this scheme in Oyo State. We are the pace-setter state, and we are trying to encourage other states in Southwest to embrace this scheme, but if ours fail, it will be a bad example. I therefore encourage all of us gathered here to be open, factual, and deliberate in our contributions in this discourse as to design a way forward to deal with this issue of funding and budgeting for the scheme to promote a speedy and humane administration of justice in the state. Once again, I welcome you all and I wish you a pleasant stay here. God bless you.
Once again, apologies to our amiable director, Father Jerome Ajakaye. Next, we shall be calling on the Honorable Chief Justice and the Chairman of the Judicial Service Commission, ably represented by Honorable Justice A.L. Akintola, for the chairman's opening remark. Please, may we all shine with a resounding applause, please.
Please, let's be seated. Good morning, the organizers. Good morning to the representative of the Deputy Speaker, Oyo State House of Assembly, the representative of the Honorable Attorney General, the Deputy Chief Registrars here, your worships, magistrates here, distinguished law enforcement agents here, security agencies here represented, my dear Egbon, the retired permanent secretary here. I'm so happy to see you again this morning. God will continue to strengthen you, sir. I am delighted to be in our midst this morning. The Honorable the Chief Judge called on me to stand in for her this morning. And I must commend the Catholic Church for this noble and lofty idea, providing an alternative sentencing platform for the cause of justice in the state by way of community service. I haven't done much reading at all as to the origins of the idea behind community service as an alternative sentencing mechanism. However, I think we should put on our thinking caps to come up with mechanisms that are tailor-made for the Nigerian environment. Why? Because in many of the EFCC cases that have been beneficiaries of this community service sentencing before my court, there have been complaints that even these convicts have had recourse to repeating the offenses because the community service sentence has not achieved the objective of reintegrating them into society, of giving them an opportunity not to be contaminated by those who are in custody already. We have found occasions where these convicts have even settled their supervisors to find alternative people to work for them, to carry out the menial jobs or menial exercises recommended for them, to a point that even when in my court, I devised a method. Once I noticed that these convicts are people who are so young and impressionable, just to impose an option of fine. I have been advised against it, that a mere option of fine is not sufficient deterrence. I recall that in the nascent stages of experimenting with community service as a sentencing option, people have come up with arguments that when it comes to politicians, the option of community service will be far from achieving the objective, because the politician will maneuver his way and perhaps call a press coverage to say that in his large-heartedness is helping to perhaps sweep the court premises or the streets to show that he's contributing to the community, rather than acknowledging that this is a reward for an infraction of the law. So what am I trying to say is that as scholars as philosophers, as thinkers, we should,
rather than acknowledging
explore
that this is a reward
how for best this community service sentencing option can really achieve the purpose of leaving an indelible mark in the records, not only in the records, but in the lives of these convicts, so that when they want to consider repeating the offense, they will think twice. I have, for example, on a number of occasions, asked innocuously from these convicts where they are from. If, for example, you say you are from Ogbomoso, I ask you, where is your compound there? Say, I will recommend that you go and sweep your streets where you come from, so that they know that this their son that they are looking up to is a criminal. And when this reality dawns on them, you'll find them weeping, begging, please don't do that. And I think we should carry it to that level so that it registers permanently. Nobody wants to be ridiculed before his people. So that the community service option, the only challenge we have is manpower to supervise. If you know that this fellow is from Ibadan, for example, where is your family compound? Or Jaba, okay, the refuse dump there. You will be the one to go and clear it, and you will wear that uniform, that everybody will know that it is not out of your good-heartedness that you have come to clean your neighborhood. It is because you are an ex-convict. I think this point is well taken, so that whilst not completely doing away with this community service option, in order for it to achieve the objective, it is important that we tinker with the status quo to ensure that the convicts really are able to show remorse for violating the law. I don't know in the discussions, in the various discussion groups, whether this will be a point that we will all be able to look at. There are many other challenges that have been faced over the period, but all things considered, I think the JDPC deserves commendation for championing the cause of assisting the law, the cause of justice, by introducing this sentencing option. And we can only pray that God will continue to enlarge your coast, God will continue to increase your relevance in the mighty name of Jesus. And all of us gathered here, our participation today, I pray, will increase our value and our worth in our service to our nation. Thank you so very much. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Next, I will be calling on the Honorable Attorney General and the Commissioner for Justice in Oyo State, ably represented by the Director of Public Prosecution in the name of Mr. S.O. Adeoye for the goodwill message. Please sound a round of applause, please.
My Lord, Honorable Justice M.L. A.L. Akintola, I want to thank you, sir, my Lord, for the short but very brilliant remarks. I want to say also that anytime we appear before your lordships, in your lordship's court, we always drink from your lordship's fountain of knowledge. I appreciate your lordship. Other members of the high table, other participants in this workshop, stakeholders workshop, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. This morning, I am wearing two caps. That of the Attorney General of Oyo State that I'm representing, and my own cap, that is the cap of the Director of Oil Prosecutions of Oyo State. But this morning, I don't have a prepared speech from my boss, the Attorney General. So I'm going to speak for myself as the DPP of Oyo State. I want to commend the JDPC and the Catholic Church. For last year, I was here. 2 years ago, I was at this stakeholders workshop. For bringing us together and for being a worthy partner in the administration of criminal justice system in Oyo State. Your effort, JDPC, is commendable. Please keep it up. Continue to be a worthy partner in the administration of criminal justice system in Oyo State. Last year, I did mention that a bill was before the Oyo State House of Assembly, and it is still before the Oyo State House of Assembly. That is the Community Service Amendment Bill. We on the government side, we are not resting on our horse. We have been, I won't use the border, we have been trying our best to ensure that that bill, that is the Community Service Amendment Bill, that is present before the House of Assembly, is passed into law. We have a new Attorney General in place in Oyo State, and it is part of the briefing that we are going to give to him, that so as to ensure quick passage of the Community Service Amendment Bill in Oyo State. It's wider, covers a wider field than the present community service law in Oyo State. So we are trying our best to ensure that the Community Service Amendment Bill is passed into law as quick as possible. Also, sometimes last week, I was discussing with somebody and he said, you people on government side, we need a lot of money to run this community service system in the state. What are you going to do to assist us? And I told that person, I said, the budget for community service is not under the Attorney General for your state. So there's little or nothing we can do. I did inform my boss about this, and he said, well, at the next budget session, that is in the course of preparing the budget for 2024, whatever support he can give to the Chief Judge of Oyo State to ensure that specifically the budget for community service in the judiciary is increased, he will do his best. So I'm assuring this sitting this morning that we are not resting on our horse on the government side to ensure that community service system in Oyo State, as novel as it is properly funded, because the Yorubas will say, "Obe to dun, owo lo pa." Without money, little or nothing can be done. Because in one of our stakeholders meetings, I raised a question, a post. I said, what if somebody is convicted by a court of law and sentenced to community service, and in the course of on the ground that is told in a farmer's farm, and that person is sentenced to community service? What if that person gets to where he's going to perform the community service? He now tells the community service officer that, Oga, I've not eaten since yesterday afternoon. The essence of community service is not to kill anybody. What will that community service officer, what will he do? And another person at this stakeholders meeting said, it behoves on that community service officer to provide for whatever the person that is going to do community service is going to eat, because it's not supposed to perform community service on empty stomach. So all these things, we need money. I assure this gathering this morning that we are going to do our best to support the CJ of Oyo State to ensure that the budget for community service in the judiciary is increased come 2024. This is not part of our brief, but I want to commend the Controller General of Correctional Service for establishing the parole board. The essence of the parole board is to visit prisons. That we have laid down procedure for the parole board as established under the Correctional Services Act and the guidelines. And the essence of the parole board is to decongest the prisons. I happen to be a member of the parole board. The parole board is at the preliminary stage, but we are working seriously to ensure that our correctional service centers are decongested in Oyo State. As far as the convicts in our prisons, in our correctional services are concerned. So I want to seize this opportunity to commend the correctional service, both at the federal level, for establishing the parole board in Oyo State, and even the state controller of correctional service for inaugurating the correctional service committee, the parole board committee in Oyo State. So that is commendable. On a final note, I want to enjoy all of us present this morning to come up with suggestions on how to raise the bar of community service in Oyo State. On behalf of my Attorney General and myself, I want to welcome all of us to this stakeholders workshop. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Well, our main aim of being here is to have a roadmap to sustainable financing for the community service scheme of Oyo State. And we should know that the issue of funding has caused several glitches in the system. And if we do not come up with viable suggestions, just like Mr. S.O. Adeoye said, there is every possibility that this could be the bane of this very beautiful scheme in Oyo State. Moving on, we shall be calling on the media for the documentary presentation of the community service scheme, our journey so far. Thank you very much.
Over the years, the myriad of challenges facing Nigeria prison system have been identified as part of the factors undermining its effectiveness in crime deterrence and correctional efforts. Apparently, the state of Nigerian justice system gave a lot of concern and has triggered stakeholders in criminal justice sector, in community development advocacies, and non-governmental organization towards the need for a punitive scheme that is reformatory and is potent to guide against the perennial problems of prison congestion and endless awaiting trial incarceration in Nigeria. Foremost among non-governmental organizations at the vanguard of search for a novel idea in justice procedure is the Justice Development and Peace Commission, JDPC Ibadan, a non-governmental faith-based organization and key promoter of the community service scheme as an undisputable alternative to imprisonment of minor offenders.
Justice Development and Peace Commission, JDPC Ibadan. It's a non-for-profit and a non-governmental organization, of course faith-based, of the Catholic Archdiocese of Ibadan, and we are here to cater for the well-being of the people, the social well-being of the people within Oyo State and Osun State, and irrespective of religion, culture, or background. JDPC caters for humanity as a whole. So our beneficiaries cut across all walks of life, all kinds of culture, all kinds of religion.
I have been working in the justice sector for well over 20 years now. And just before the project started in 2011, having been working, providing legal aid services to indigent awaiting trial persons in Agodi prison, then now custodian center, we observed the congestion over the years and the fact that majority of persons awaiting trial are actually persons facing charges that are capital in nature, very serious offenses. And then you have the other category of persons who have committed minor offenses but are also awaiting trial in custody, even though primarily their charges are bailable, but for one reason or the other, they are still in custody and also contributing to the congestion. So we had to think outside the box, coupled with the reality of the slow criminal justice system that we have in Oyo State and Nigeria as a whole.
You know, when the need to change or to reform the civil procedure law in order to expand its scope became necessary, there were some innovations that were thought to be brought into it. So that is when people started proposing this concept of community service. And JDPC was equally one of those that effectively participated and presented the proposal to us.
Remarkably, the then governor of Oyo State, Senator Abiola Ajimobi, signed the bill to a state law in 2016 for proper implementation of the community service scheme in 2017.
Community service sentence cannot exceed 6 months, and any offender has the opportunity to serve community service twice there. We have, now currently in Oyo State, we have both high court judges, magistrates, and even President's Customary Court Grade A, who are also lawyers, sentencing convicts to community service.
The summary of it is that it gives the judicial officer the option of, rather than sentencing somebody to 2 years imprisonment for stealing a goat in the market or stealing a phone, he can sentence to X number of hours of community service. Now, what kind of service will then be dependent on the community service unit?
According to the interpretation of the law, community service scheme means non-custodial punishment by which, after an offender has been convicted, the court rules or sentences him to serve the community and physical work rather than undergoing imprisonment. This concept is a form of supervised non-custodial sentencing to menial jobs like cutting grasses or clearing weeds, sweeping the community to make it clean rather than years of awaiting trials and the eventual imprisonment that indiscriminately worsens the burden of justice and makes deterrence impossible.
With the help of the Honorable Chief Judge, Honorable Justice Emmanuel Abimbola, they inaugurated and created a new department entirely for community service shortly before the bill was signed, and they've already started practicing community service. Some of the magistrates have already started sentencing offenders to community service. So they employed new members of staff entirely. They employed new people, and they were trained on what community service is about. And the governor was the one that he commissioned that unit, and the unit has its headquarters at the High Court of Oyo State. They also created 9 units across the states. In each of these units, there's a community service officer and a field officer.
As the non-custodial community service sentence is gaining acceptance in many parts of the world, scholars have pointed out its numerous advantages over imprisonment. The first advantage is also a factor. Prisoners' feeding and upkeep, as well as other indirect costs, have long-term effects on the society. Another good side to community service scheme is that it has greatly minimized the level of negative influence hardened criminals have on new offenders, who most times are inexperienced and consequently are introduced to advanced crimes.
It has helped in decongesting our facility. And when facilities are decongested, definitely you know that the issue of the stigmatization will not come in. The government will not be paying much on feeding of inmates. There are a lot of benefits accruing to it.
The outstanding success recorded by community service since it was inaugurated in Oyo State is highly encouraging. Between January 2018 and March 2022, a total of 722 minor crime offenders who would have languished in prisons have been sentenced to community services across all the magisterial districts in the state. Thankfully, only a few cases of recidivism is recorded.
The gain has been enormous. For one, and even if for nothing else, the very fact that there's a law in Oyo State, a separate law on community service function, and it's actually the first in Nigeria. The Lagos State has community service too, but a law that is standing alone, Community Service Punishment Law of Oyo State 2016. And then the very fact that we are able to prevent certain persons from going into the custodial center, then prison. And it's also giving the criminal justice system in Oyo State a human face. That look, it's not just about punishment, it's also about reform.
The bar receives it with open arms because we go to prisons, we are exposed to what prisoners and inmates go through. We know as a fact that government does not have maybe sufficient fund for our custodial center. So if the human person is at the center of development, once we can achieve reformation of that person through any other scheme, and community service is a viable option, we embrace it.
The first day that I came here, I find myself like I'm not happy. But when I mix up with my colleagues, we talk together, we advise each other that let's go back. When we are done with this community service of the thing, let's look for a job. There are different types of job that we can go into with legit way without frauding someone. And since then, I've been into POS business, which I've been doing since last year. And I'm making a little profit to sustain myself.
For the time I've been here, they have been very friendly with us, both the officers on the field and the one at the office. They have been very friendly with us. Every day they will ask about our family. Even if they notice anything about us, they ask questions. They ask questions a lot.
As stakeholders commend and prescribe the scheme for other states in Nigeria, words of commendation and appreciation were directed towards JDPC, the author, the initiator of Community Service Scheme, for its ingenuity and doggedness.
I want to appreciate JDPC for initiating this program.
JDPC have done wonderfully. When we came on board, they welcomed us with full hand, and we are working in synergy with them. If you can even go to the judiciary will praise the JDPC in their efforts on community service in Oyo State.
Without JDPC, I doubt if we would ever have had community service as a scheme in Oyo State, or even as a scheme in any state of the Federation.
I make bold to say that Oyo State is taking the lead amongst the states that are, utilizing this non-custodial alternative. It's a very great alternative to custodial sentencing.
No doubt, the community service scheme is novel and innovative. Offenders are punished, yet their dignities are preserved. We can only hope that other sectors of the society would learn and pick intervention programs that best suit our culture and tradition so that we can make meaningful progress across board. Long live JDPC Ibadan.
So we have a template, we have the experience, we have tried it, it has worked. So we have become a reference point to all those who are interested in making sure that, in beginning this kind of program in their states or wherever. So we are willing to provide necessary assistance when we are called upon. Even when we are not called upon, we will come to you and see how we can sell our ideas and see how you can also be part of this movement.
In this pace-setter state comes with having a sustainable front. Because what is the end goal of a systematic plan that has no sustainable platform? Well, I shall be inviting the Deputy Chief Registrar, Community Service, Mr. Ihe Idowu, to give us an insight on the review of the community service scheme in the pace-setter states and report on the implementation of the community service punishment scheme, the success and shortcomings so far. Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause, please.
Thank you. Good morning. My Lord, the Honorable Chief Judge of Oyo State, Justice I.S. Yerima, ably represented by my Lord, Justice A.L. Akintola, the Director of JDPC, Father Jerome Ajakaye, the Attorney General of Oyo State, Mr. Biodun Aikomo, ably represented by Mr. S.O. Adioye, the Honorable DPP, the Honorable Chief Registrar, High Court and Customary Court of Appeal, the Deputy Chief Registrar, High Court and Customary Court of Appeal, Your Worship and Honor, all other protocols duly observed, especially as laid down by Father Jerome and my Lord, Justice A.L. Akintola. I welcome each and every one of you to this stakeholder workshop, which I believe is pertinent because I consider each and every one of us a stakeholder in furthering this scheme, a very great scheme. And though I may delve on a bit on the side that I feel that issue of finance, I want to give us a short input or idea into what this scheme is all about. It is pertinent to understand that crime, though variously defined, for For the purpose of this workshop, I define it as procedure or trial in nature or results that led to finding of guilty or innocence, with finding of guilty leading to punishment. The possibility of punishment is not the only distinguishing mark of criminal trial, but it's probably the most important one. I refer to the case of Lord Atkin in Proprietary Article Trade Association at AG Canada, 1931 AC, quoted in Criminal Law of Justice by Okonkwo and Nash. Thus, Section 2 of the Criminal Code define crime as act or omission which render the person doing the act of making the omission liable to punishment under this code. Before the advent of the administration of criminal justice law in Nigeria, the punishment majorly visited on guilty offender is imprisonment, custodial sentence. So a defendant may be fined, cautioned, and be discharged. However, with advancement of society and improvement of the efficiency, effectiveness, and humaneness of Nigerian criminal justice system, non-custodial sentence, community service was introduced to achieve the following, apart from reducing the congestion of the correctional centers. 1, keeping non-serious offenders out of prison. 2, punishing an offender by requiring him to do work that benefit the community where he resides. 3, reduce the risk of recidivism or repeat offending. 4, reducing the inflow of offenders into prison, thus reducing the burden of maintaining them in custody. 5, rehabilitating the offender while ensuring the offender maintains ties with his family, community, or even retain his job. 6, enforcing the discipline of positive and demanding unpaid labor job. 7, an increasing chance of rehabilitating the offender to acceptable social standards. 8, punishing the offender by requiring the offender to perform unpaid work by discipline of punctual reporting for work and loss of free time. 9, reparation to the community by requiring the offender to do work which is socially useful, which repay the community for what the offender has done, and if possible, make good the damage done by the offender. The offender service is deterrent to others also. See Order 23, Rule 3, Administration of Criminal Justice Rule 2022. The non-custodial sentence provided the following benefit to the offender and the society. 1, the offender who has a place of employment will have the opportunity of retaining his job. 2, the offender of minor offenses will not be mixed up with hardened criminal, convict of serious offender who can negatively influence them or educate them criminally. Though the offender non-custodial convicts are convicts, the stigma of being called convict is removed, and this allows for easy reintegration into the society after serving their terms. 4, parents' children will not be torn apart from their family because they committed an offense. 5, offender can give back to the local community and forcing offender to repay their community for the wrong they've done. These are just some of the few benefits that the community service brings. In order to achieve and enjoy the aforementioned aim and benefit, the Oyo State House of Assembly enacted the Community Service Punishment Law of 2016, which gave legal backing to the introduction and backs of community service, non-custodial sentence as alternative means of punishing crime apart from imprisonment in Oyo State. This law is detailed legal framework on which the community service in Oyo State stand. Let me briefly state that though nearly all the states in Federation have domesticated the ACGA, Oyo State is one of the few states in Nigeria with full-fledged functional community service within judiciary of a state and non-custodian officer from Nigeria Correctional Service attached. What we have in other states, especially Lagos, is under the Attorney General office, and you need to go to Lagos to see that the community service is not functioning like it was in Oyo State. Also, with the cooperation and indeed great assistance from JDPC, who trained our CSO and FO, that is the community service officer and field officer. Section 44(9) of the ACGA provided for community service, while community service law provides the framework for the community service in Oyo State. The introduction of community service as alternative to custodial sentence is a viable instrument in the administration of criminal justice, apart from reducing the congestion of correctional facility in Nigeria. It also helps in reintegration, rehabilitation, deterrence, and recidivism associated with custodial sentence. And it should be employed by the judicial officer maximally to reduce crime and give human face to criminal justice. Also, as alternative dispute resolution like mediation, reconciliation, plea bargain, etc., are enjoined to be considered by court in place of full trial. Non-custodial sentencing like community service should also be considered in place of custodial sentence during sentencing due to its enormous positive benefit to the society at large, as the effect benefit to the society is enormous. I want to employ your worship, your honor, and my lords to consider fully community service greatly in sentencing instead of custodial sentencing. Factors affecting the effectiveness of this scheme in Oyo State. Between October 2017 to July 2023, 1,644 offenders were processed by the community service units in Oyo State. In 2000, the number of offenders treated were 76 offenders. In 2019, 228 offenders were treated or processed by this scheme. In 2023, this year, already we've treated about 85, which means that from this we can see that we have been having exponential increment in the numbers of offenders being processed by this unit year in, year out. Every year we have more offenders being processed by us. And these figures, you know, is going to be increased as more judges and magistrates are, you know, key into the scheme. Presently, we have 9 units in Oyo State. We have Iyagan unit, Ibadan Northeast, Moniya, Oyo, Ogbomoso, Iseyin, Shaki, Igbora, and Community Center at High Court. You see, the units are strategically placed in such a way that all parts of Oyo State are covered. There is no part that is left out. Whether you are in the Ishi, you have an officer serving, you know, the people there, the judges and magistrates there, and even customary court of appeal. And by this, it is, you know, pertinent to say that we are everywhere. Now, though the present due to the yearly increase in number of offenders to be processed by this scheme, it is important to increase the strength of our community service officer, CO, and the field officer, FO. Presently, the non-custodial officer of Correctional Service of Nigeria, you know, fill this gap we are having, you know, because we do not have enough manpower. And now and then, you know, like in my unit at Ring Road, we have 3 of them helping us. Because there are times when we consider the numbers of offenders we have to treat. At times it can be 2 officers to 40, officers to 40 offenders at Ring Road. And this at times, you know, brings is a matter of problem, and the way we solve it at times is, you know, it's crazy. But this you know, ratio of offender to officer, you know, makes the effective supervision of the offenders a nightmare. So there's a need for increased personnel so that we can be more effective. Also, there is need to increase the numbers of counselors, because we do have people that help us, social support group. They are very marvelous. We have Carson and who have been doing this for us, and they come in and they counsel these offenders when they are coming into the scheme, and then when they are going out. And we are saying that we cannot have enough, because what they do is to help us to educate this offender, the need for them not to go back to their vomiting quote. And you see, we cannot overemphasize this. We also need psychiatrists to help us, you know, because we discovered that some of these inmates, what they really need is not to punish them per se, but they need someone to talk to them, someone to talk to, someone to listen to them, someone to redirect them, someone to know the particular problem or issue they are having. You know, it's not all crimes that are generated by avarice, or let me say the greed. Some are passion, or some are something that some people just say that, I don't know. You know, kleptomania, for example, some people just go somewhere, see things that is valueless and then start stealing it. They come, you know, such offender will be best served by having people counseling them. So the issue of counselor cannot be overemphasized. We need, as psychiatrists, we need them. Then there's also the need for adequate finance of this scheme. Some of our community service officers are covering more than one court, situated at great distance from each other. For example, the person covering is saying, you know, is saying the place where the High Court is located is saying is different from where the Magistrate Court is situated, due to the Court of Appeal and then the customary court. So he has to move from one place to the other, and you know, we cannot expect him to be using his little salary now that have been sapped, you know, by this increment in the fuel and transportation, you know, to use it all the time. So there is need for example, that man, if you can get him a bike, it will greatly reduce it and affect his work so that he can perform optimally. Unlike when he has to jump from one Okada to the other, you know, and then pay heavy, you know, then mobility will help him. Not him alone, but others too, so that they can do the work effectively and efficiently. So there is need to provide motorcycle to some of them, and there are some that we would need to give little pocket money to. Now, when Mr. Joyo was giving his remarks, he said something about feeding some of these inmates, this offender. Yes. Oh, sorry. Now, since we want... Oh, okay. So, since we want more people to key into this, that means we want more courts to key into this. Then it means that there's going to be, you know, increment in the numbers of offenders to be treated, and this means that there's going to be need for this scheme to be, to be financed adequately and sufficiently. So that's another thing. Then another way is that there is need for the provision of uniform for the offender while doing community service, as this separate them from ordinary people. We discovered that, you know, even at times, the idea of putting on uniform, it will deter some of them from committing crime, you know, and then we even stop them from going back to their family. And this will greatly help us, you know, to achieve the aims and objectives for which this scheme was established. So presently, we have less than 80 uniforms. And at times, at Ring Road alone, there are times when we have, I think last year, we have more than 100 inmates. So it was challenges for us to get a uniform for them. So we need to, you know, devise some ingenuity method of providing uniforms, and then to make sure that we separate them, we distinguish them from other members of the public. Because when you see someone wearing uniform, like my Lord rightly said, you know that this one is not cleaning this place from out of goodness of his heart, but is serving time for the crime he has done. So presently, like we said, we need 80. But we have 80, and we need 9. At least we need 100. This 80 I'm talking about is divided among the 9 units. That's all over Oyo State. So there are times when some magistrates come and say that we don't have a uniform at my unit. And I'll say that, okay, we'll look into it. But recently I told all the units with with the JDPC, and we discovered that there are some areas where maybe they will have some units where they have just a uniform. We are working on it. We have already supplied uniform. 5, 2, 3, according to their need. But we need more. And so presently, I would suggest that we have 100 uniforms, and yearly, because of due to wear and tears, that 50 should be provided yearly, so that this issue of having all of them put in uniform will be realized. But the other thing that will affect and make this scheme to be effective is provision of tools for the offenders to perform their job. Presently, the last time we have tools given to us was I think when this scheme was at its inception. Now we have to devise a genuine way of getting the tools. And you see, we are not only working in the market, working at roadside, like like you see us. In fact, we do go to ministries to work. The Honorable DPP can testify to that. There are times they ask for us, and then we supply people there. We have our people working at some police stations too, like the Iwo Road, Oluyole. So where there is need, they ask us. We provide the offenders because the aim is to make sure that they work, they serve the community, they give back to the society. But the thing is that we cannot go there with their hand. They need tools, they need cutlass, they need brooms, they need mop, mopping stick. And all these things are things that have to be provided. So please, those are things that will help. Once we have those ones, it will work effectively and efficiently. Another thing is the issue of taking care of those community service officers. Like I've said that we need more, then we now need to take care of those who are already with us. You will not believe it that there are some of them that don't have office. I went to Omiadio. At Omiadio, I was informed by my officer that she doesn't have a desk, she doesn't have a chair, and even the space given to her looks more like a toilet. And those are the conditions under which some of them work. That's for those who even have. There are some that don't even have, that don't have a place. So they just, like the one at Monia, I was informed that she has to share office with someone, and then that when that one is out. And you see, when we want to do counseling, when the counselor needs to counsel these people, they need a space to counsel them. So we don't have office space where that thing can take place, then that means counseling will be, something to achieve, to do. So there is a need for the provision of office and equipment for these officers so that they can perform optimally. So there is need to improve so from this, I do not want to belabor this issue because I know that it's something that we have been saying year in, year out. But let me just conclude by saying that it is very clear that for effective and optimal performance of the scheme, there is need to finance the scheme adequately, improve the numbers of personnel, provide tools for the offender, improve the condition of service of community officers and field officers by providing tools for them to function, and other things that will make their life and work easy. Let me use this opportunity to thank my Lord, the Chief Judge of Oyo State, Honorable Justice I.S. Yerima, for our continued support for the scheme. Let my Lord, my predecessor, Mrs. O.A. Ogundrin, I will say, I'll keep on telling people that as far as community service is concerned in Oyo State, she wrote the book. So it's always an honor to have her and then to ask her for guidance and advice, which she's still doing. I want to thank Carson, the correctional service, non-custodian unit, that's our partner, Asido Foundation, and everyone that have been of tremendous help and assistance to this scheme that drive it forward. Now, let me, at this juncture, remind everybody where we are, and then to tell everybody that we appreciate the JDPC for their continuous support, and even, you see, for their continuous support and in helping in introducing this scheme. And they are still carrying a very, very large load in moving this scheme forward. Like this meeting now is due to the JDPC concern about making sure that this thing not only work but work efficiently. So I want to thank JDPC once again for being the tremendous assistant to this scheme. So to all community service officers, I say, let's keep the flag flying. God be with us. Let me use the opportunity to thank each and every one of you who are present here and who are in one way or the other. Your worship, your honors, my Lord, legal practitioner, the police, I'm sorry if I do not mention you, but it's just that my memory cannot carry everything. But I want to appreciate.
Thank you very much. Yes, it has been a smooth journey and also a tedious one as regards community service scheme in Oyo State. My Lord, Honorable Justice A.L. Akintola just made his exit to attend to an urgent assignment. We are very grateful for him gracing this occasion, and we say a big thank you. Please, shall we take just 10 minutes to stretch our feet? Because I can see maybe we are hungry or we're a bit bored. Oh, so alongside we shall be taking our tea break. Just 10 minutes. Thank you very much. Please, we have 3 minutes to go. 3 minutes to go, please. I welcome us once again to this workshop. I know so far we have kept ourselves abreast of what the community service scheme in Oyo State is all about. Our smooth journey and our roadblocks. And here we are once again. Seeking a viable option at sustaining this beautiful scheme. So far, we had the Justice Development Peace and Commission. We have already partnered with psychosocial support groups and are still making our moves to ensure the adoption of this beautiful scheme in other Western states. However, the pace-setter state, as we all know, has created great people and personality of excellence. And one of the personality I refer to was named in the Global Who is Who Legal 2014 and 2016 as a global legal expert in Nigeria in the field of telecommunication, media, and technology, a forensic advocate. He also has his expertise in litigation, alternative dispute resolution, and has also employed his innovative skills in advisory services, litigation strategy, and process on behalf of the Nigerian Telecommunication. In addition, he's recorded not to have lost any litigation related to communication. He is an internationally accredited mediator with the Center for Effective Dispute Resolution in the United Kingdom. He sits as neutral and faculty member of the Multi-Door Courthouse, both in Lagos and Oyo State. He has served gallantly and meritoriously as the Honorable Attorney General of Oyo State in the years 2016 until 2019. And also gallantly fought and won this great cause and was conferred with the prestigious rank of the Senior Advocate of Nigeria in the year 2020. He is no one but a viable, amiable, effervescent one, the learned silk, Mr. Oluseun M. Abimbola. Please, a round of applause for him, please. I shall be inviting him to shed more light and give us his input as to the theme of today, which is the roadmap to sustainable financing for the community service scheme of Oyo State. The learned silk, sir. You're very welcome. Please sound a round of applause, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to
to be here to share this moment with every one of us. All of us being stakeholders in the community service scheme. When I came into the hall and I saw the name tags on the table, I realized that indeed we have a large stakeholder presence because of the nature of what we're discussing. And I must commend the JDPC for sustaining this engagement over the years since the inception of the scheme. I'm also quite elated to, in the course of preparing to share a few thoughts with us this morning, or this afternoon now, I'd had to speak with Mrs. Oguri at the High Court, just to get a feel of how the scheme is running, what has been, what's the general outlook of their operations. And I was quite happy to get some of their statistics, and I know that it's a success story, although it can even get better. And so I also want to commend the judiciary for taking up the gauntlet and for running the race so far. Let me start with the various protocols recognizing the Chief Judge, who was represented by Honorable Justice A.L. Akintola, the Honorable Attorney General, represented by the DPP, the representative of the Commissioner of Police, our dear Director of the JDPC, Father Jerome, our DCRs, your worships, officers of various law enforcement agencies. I've seen EFCC, I've seen the police. I didn't see ICPC, and I didn't see civil defense. I believe they are also stakeholders. I want to recognize correctional facility officers also, and other stakeholders of the scheme. Of course, my learned friends and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure that a lot has been said with respect to the theme of this engagement in terms of charting a roadmap to a sustainable financing structure for the community service scheme of Oyo State. To save time, let me keep to my brief before me, and I'm sure in the time of engagement and interaction, we can discuss further on where we are, where we ought to be. After 7 years of the operations of the Oyo State Community Service Law of 2016, the history of which I was privileged to have been part of from its conception in 2012 by the JDPC, where they collaborated with the Bar Association in Ibadan, and I was chairman at the time, to its passage in 2016 as a law from an executive bill from the Ministry of Justice, co-reviewed with the JDPC while I was Attorney General. The community service, or community service as an alternative sentencing regime, has come of age in our criminal justice system, with a growing statistics of over 1,000 convicts passing through the scheme from inception, with only 15 abscondments representing 1.4% of total, and 1 repeat offender. I have no fear of contradiction when I say that the scheme is clearly a success story for criminal justice in Oyo State, and the Oyo State judiciary can proudly wear this success as a badge of honor. The theme of this stakeholders conference is Roadmap to Sustainable Financing for the Community Service Scheme of Oyo State. The financing of the justice sector systems, processes, and agencies in Nigeria, or any country for that matter, is of paramount importance for the effective functioning of the justice system and the maintenance of the rule of law. From when an accused person is investigated, apprehended, prosecuted, convicted, imprisoned, or fined, or sentenced to hours of community service for committing a crime, a significant amount of money would have been spent across the various agencies that would have been involved in the criminal justice process by the time the process hits the finish line of sentencing or imprisonment. Financing the system and process has no doubt been a challenge, yet a budget we cannot shirk from if we must have a working justice system. Having served as chairman of the bar and on several committees involved in the administration of justice over the years, besides being a former chief law officer of our state, take it from me, administration of criminal justice is a costly endeavor, and it will take all stakeholders to be more intentional if we are to build an effective and efficient system that works. It is not unusual in our climate that the police who investigate and coordinate the presentation of witnesses in criminal courts for the prosecution of a charge would simply refuse to present the witnesses in court or make themselves available to give evidence as investigating police officers on the ground, that the officer had no resources to transport himself or herself and witnesses to court on the trial date. I could not help wondering if our criminal justice system is by default or design helping itself to fail. If a trivial need like transportation of police officers and other witnesses to court cannot be a budgetary head of expenditure for the Nigerian police in its annual budget. What of times when the correctional services unit were unable to transport detained awaiting trial suspect to court for trial simply because they had no fuel or vehicle fit for the purpose? Happily, that state of affairs is becoming a thing of the past. Now, these mundane reasons have eventually found their way into our jurisprudence in court rulings in criminal cases. And you then wonder if the merit of these matters will not suffer in the face of these extraneous system failures in our criminal justice system. Now, I say this with all seriousness because we have magistrates, we have judges, judicial officers. I'm sure you have had to adjourn cases because of situations like this. No money to come to court of witnesses, so you have to take a date. You write a ruling that you take a date. This doesn't happen in other climes. This cannot be a reason for adjournment of anything. It does not stand up to the scrutiny of what an egalitarian society ought to be. And so we should not get familiar with it just because it is what it is in our jurisdiction. Whatever we need to do to change that narrative, we must do it to ensure that narrative is changed. I'm not advocating that the officer or the individual should dip their hands in their pockets and fund it, but we must all feel that pinch, that urge, that nudge, that mandatoriness that makes you want to do all you can to ensure that this state of affairs changes. So funding the justice sector is now a state of emergency. Now, funding non-custodial and community service schemes in Oyo State. The punishment for crimes vary, And legal scholars have stated that punishment is an indication of the society's disapproval of a crime. Indeed, our laws in prescribing sentences and judges pronouncing them are required to prescribe sentences in accordance with set parameters, including the fact that the penalty must be fitting for each offense based on the nature of the offense, whether fatalities occurred by it, prevalence of the crime, nature of the offender, among other factors. Now, with dwindling finances allocated to the agencies running the system, including the judiciary, the entire value chain of administration of criminal justice is severely impacted and limited in its capacity to meet its set objectives and build a system that works efficiently and effectively to deter criminality and punish criminals appropriately. This funding failure has not only led to the high incidence of unsolved crimes, but directly responsible for various inefficiencies in the system. While it is the responsibility of governments at all levels to fund the criminal justice system, if we must have a safe and secured community and nation, the reality is that such one-sided approach to funding the criminal justice system is the very reason we continue to face challenges in the operational funding of the sector. Many governments see the criminal justice system as a cost center, and they continue to shave off its budget without averting their minds to the consequences visited on society as the justice system fails further by reason of the funding deficit, the resultant overworked structures, and underpaid officials. It is time for stakeholders, particularly the judiciary as a principal stakeholder constitutionally vested with financial independence, to explore ingenious means of funding and at the barest minimum, improve available resources to the judicial sector of the value chain of the criminal administration of justice structure. So how can this happen? I came in and I had a lot of comments when Mr. Edo was speaking about the various challenges that they face in executing or implementing this scheme in Oyo State. You're having 2 caseworkers to 40 offenders. Why will you not have abscondment? 2 caseworkers to 40 offenders. How can they effectively monitor? But if you want to hire more, you need funding. If you want to create a structure that makes it work, you need funding. So what's the first thing to do? Naturally, the lowest hanging fruit is improved budgetary funding. Perhaps the lowest hanging fruit for improved funding of the community service scheme is the need to improve budgetary allocation to the scheme. In Oyo State, the community service scheme is under the supervision and implementation of the Oyo State Judiciary. Section 2 of the law merely provides that in this law, agency means any agency of government so designated for the purpose. And so, at the time, it was the wisdom that the proposed operations of the scheme in Oyo State, which was at the time one of the first jurisdictions in the country to implement the scheme, was too novel to be left in the hands of untrained public officers unfamiliar with the significance of a criminal conviction, nor the mandatoriness of executing the sentence and the fundamental nature of the obligations of our administration of justice. For instance, typically, when you set up a structure like this in legislation, they would have created an agency. And that agency will be Community Service Agency of Oyo State. They will have chairman, they will have board, they will have all the trappings. A lot would have gone into the paraphernalia of the office, and a lot less will go into the actual work. But because it was a novel thing at the time, we decided to leave it for stakeholder implementation at the time. And so we therefore left it for stakeholders to decide under whose watch the scheme was to run. Ordinarily, this function seems like an executive function, being a scheme for the implementation of the final judgment of a court that would have convicted the accused person and sentenced him or her to community service. However, in its execution in Oyo State, the judiciary has taken the pole position and been the implementing organ through the office of the Deputy Chief Registrar designated in charge of the scheme. While I must commend the diligence and effectiveness of the unit under the judiciary and the able supervision of the DCR pioneering the operation of the scheme, Mrs. Olumide Ogunrin, and her successor, Mr. Idowu, much of the effort has been by the sheer commitment and sacrifice of the judiciary and its operators, rather than the existence of a fully funded structure for running the scheme. Whereas the Correctional Services, on the other hand, is a federal government executive agency funded in the federal budget and supervised by the Ministry of Interior with its own enabling acts, administrative and operational structures, with career progression and professional development for its officers and men. This privilege has not been made available to the community service scheme operations housed within the judiciary. The community service scheme should not be a mere unit of the judiciary, but a full-fledged department requiring separately budgeted head of funds, trained case managers, a record center, an enforcement team, etc., if it must succeed and run efficiently. Perhaps to aid this, the time has come to give effect to the full language of its enabling law at Section 11, which seeks to establish the Oyo State Committee on Community Service to be headed by a retired judge or a lawyer of at least 15 years post-call experience, appointed by the governor on the recommendation of the chief judge. Other members by law should include a serving magistrate nominated by the chief judge, 3 nominees of community development associations in the state, 2 justices of the peace, 1 representative justice nominee serving as the secretary, 1 representative of the commissioner of police, 1 representative of the MBA in the state, and 1 representative of civil society. We can see generally sections 11 and 12 of the community service law of Oyo State. Now, this was the committee set up, not an agency. The moment they transit into an agency, which is what politicians sometimes like to do, the moment they transit, they must have a board with chairmen. They'll still have all these people populating the board, but they will now, each one of them will have office, will have official car, will have, all because of what? Because of community service. And so we need to depart from some of those bloated structures rather than looking at the real meat of the issue and the service that we need to perform. But if we have the committee, then those ones know that they are just a committee. It's not a full-time work. It is a part-time work because you're a committee. It's not your employment for which you need official car, official house, official cook, official everything. You're still doing your work and you meet as a committee periodically, quarterly, monthly, as the case may be. But then you benefit, the scheme will benefit from the industry, from the experience, from the knowledge that you have, repository of knowledge in the members of that committee to be able to drive things. And they are also pulled from various agencies for the purpose of enabling interaction and interfacing with different agencies of government that might be required for the operations. This committee can then more robustly carry out the full spectrum of functions demanded of the scheme. Let me caution, however, that emphasis should be on the roles to be played and not mere sloganeering of offices while the work suffers. I will, however, with the benefit of hindsight, propose an amendment that formally puts the scheme under the direct oversight of the judiciary. Having seen the measure of success the Oyo State Judiciary has made of the scheme, even when not specifically designated as overseeing the scheme. In its budgetary defense, the Oyo State Judiciary must make the scheme a budget head for appropriation. In so doing, and to justify requested funding, meaningful data is required. I observe that in Nigeria, data records and statistical analytics are not emphasized. Hence, we usually lack empirical analysis of exact funding needs for the various aspects of our public service responsibilities. We either over budget or under budget. I'm happy that the Community Service Scheme unit of Judiciary have been able to capture statistics of its success story so far. At an average rate of 150 convicts sentenced to about 8 to 12 weeks of community service on the scheme per annum, the scheme clearly needs funding to ensure its lofty objectives are met and reformation of convicts is achieved. 2, financing could also be generated from payment of costs and fines by the offender as may be ordered by the court. This generated revenue can be used to support the community service scheme in Oyo State, as well as other public services or initiatives in the judicial system. Sometimes one tends to think that the judiciary at times unwittingly acts as its own worst enemy. In the award of damages and apportionment of fines, our courts in Nigeria have been somewhat too thrifty, I would even say stingy, in the award of damages in civil cases or prescription of fines in criminal cases, without prejudice to cases where the amount of fines are already strictly provided by law. Section 421 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act of 2015, which is domesticated in Oyo State in our own ACJL, provides that where no amount of fine is stipulated, the amount of the fine shall be at the discretion of the court. It is therefore self-defeating for a court in the exercise of that discretion to prescribe light fines and community service, even for some serious financial crimes, when the offender has the means to pay, only to be looking for funding to execute the community service scheme for the same offender. You put yourself in a catch-22. You probably will recall a case of a plea bargain some few years ago, some top federal civil servant that was caught with several billions in his account, prosecuted by the EFCC, I think in Abuja or somewhere there. And he entered into a plea bargain. And that plea bargain required him forfeiting some of the monies found with him. And then when he was going to be sentenced by the presiding judge, he was fined 700,000 naira for stealing billions. Now, assuming he was also sentenced to community service for 6 months, you'll be looking for money for him to administer community service when he stole billions and you find him only 700,000. That hardly happens elsewhere. When you read of fines handed down by the U.S. courts, fines against corporations, fines against companies, fines against individuals, even the recent one that we have just read, the forfeiture orders granted against former Governor Ibori, or against his wife, against his lawyer, they are in tens of millions of pounds. Fine. Because they are not going to allow their system to implode because they are taking care of you for breaching their laws. And I've been engaged with 1 or 2 agencies, enforcement agencies in the West, and they did an investigation. This was not even a criminal offense. It was just a simple civil matter. But they had reported a client of ours to Homeland Security. And because of that report, our client was barred from entering the United States. And he didn't know why. He kept pushing, kept writing. He showed up for visa. They said, well, you see that there's something on your records. You come back in 6 months' time. He came back in 6 months' time. There's something on your record. So we had to get a lawyer in the U.S. The lawyer in the U.S. investigated and said, hey, something was forwarded to Homeland Security against you. A petition. Guess where the petition came from? An estranged, divorced wife wrote a petition against the husband. They were divorced. They were already divorced. The children are with her in the U.S. Wrote a petition and told several stories. He wasn't taking care of the children. He's not funding the education. He has abandoned his children. All of that. And that was what stood against this man from getting an ordinary travel visa to visit his own sons in America. So when we got that, we instigated an investigation. It was unusual because they don't listen to us in those kind of circles. But we were able to instigate an investigation. By the time they investigated, because we forwarded all the proof of all the remittances he had been sending every month of $5,000 to this same woman every month. We showed proof of his house in America, the rent of which he was putting aside for the college education of these same sons. Several things. So when they saw it, they contacted our own contact and said, look, we will have to do further investigation, but there is no funding for it, except you can raise the fund. Now that's to tell you that they take those things seriously, but they understand it costs money. Our client provided $120,000 for that investigation. It was from that investigation they realized they now found many crimes against the woman. But that's a story for another day. Anyway, what I'm simply trying to allude to is that you see agencies recognize that we need funding to carry out our services. So whenever we have the opportunity to be able to, by law, get the offender to pay for the service, by law, not the ones that we sometimes find in various places that say, okay, you want us to investigate, bring fuel money. That one is illegal. But if I'm a court, I'm a magistrate, I'm a judge, and this person has already been convicted, and the nature of the offense and the law by which he's been charged allows me to prescribe a fine, then why should I be prescribing a fine of 20,000, 50,000 for somebody that I know can readily pay 2 million? What is wrong with you prescribing a fine of 2 million if the law allows you to? Exactly, nature of the offense. Nothing stops it. So, and then you can then formally make a case to government and say, hey, out of all the fines that we have been generating, we should be retaining a percentage to fund the scheme to take care of the offender. No government in its wisdom will stop that from happening. And that's why I said there must be ingenious ways of dealing with these issues beyond the strict letters that we have before us. And so you cannot then be looking for funding to execute community service for the same offender. Section 427(2) of ACJA shows the fines are, among other purposes, paid into the revenue of government. It is therefore a source for funding the administration of justice scheme, among other things. If the judiciary lacks funds for the scheme, a case can be made to the governor for leave to retain a percentage of fines paid by offenders to fund the community service scheme cost for such an offender. Furthermore, the judiciary can, in its award of fines, ensure the fine will more than cover the cost of operating the scheme for the said offender, thus ensuring the scheme becomes ultimately self-financing. No doubt, some degree of legislative intervention and policy reviews may be needed to execute same, but the judiciary as an arm of government is vantagely positioned to push for this in order to improve its access to funding for the scheme. 3. The bill to amend the 1999 Constitution and move prisons and correctional centers from the exclusive legislative list to the concurrent legislative list was recently assented to by the former President Muhammadu Buhari. Prison security and administration in the country have long been a source of contention and controversy. Many people have expressed worry about deteriorating jail facilities, congestion, a large number of awaiting trial inmates, many of whom have been arrested over simple crimes and misdemeanors. For decades, the Nigerian prison capacity has steadily increased. The tricky bail system and arbitrary administrative bail system of law enforcement officers, police, EFCC, DSS, in granting bail to suspected offenders, particularly for charges that are bailable, is one element that contributes to imprisonment and correctional facility overpopulation. I don't want to say too much about this, but I think this is the greatest disservice that we do to the criminal justice system. Bail and the terms attached to bail. Just 2 days ago, I read of some person who was being charged somewhere, I think in Lagos, a businessman, and was charged for stealing 150 million naira or something like that. When the bail was going to be granted, it was granted bail in 500 million naira and surety. The amount he's charged with is 150 million, but his bail bond is 500 million. Now, if he does not know anybody that has a value of 500 million, will he ever leave the detention? These are the issues. Yorubas will say, these are the real issues. The same bail conditions set by EFCC are onerous, even for administrative bail. Onerous. Go and get deputy. By today, 2023, almost every director in Oyo State Civil Service must be a shorty. If we are to count how many times enforcement agencies, EFCC, ICPC ask for you to provide a director and all of, by today, you should not have any director that is not a shorty in Oyo State. Am I lying? So how realistic is that? And for as long as these people are kept in custody, you congest that system. So why don't we create an exit valve and be more ingenious in finding a way? The essence of bail, as we all know, is to ensure the appearance of the suspect to appear for his trial. And there are many ways of enforcing that or ensuring that. The main objective of the Constitution Amending Bill passed is to share the responsibility of the correctional services on both federal and state governments, especially as our criminal laws provide for federal offenses and state offenses. But all convicts end up in federal penitentiaries. The problem of increased congestion in correctional facilities all over Nigeria was also a major determining factor. However, with this shared responsibility, the state government is required to now make provision to fund and to build correctional centers in the state, which will largely help the initiative to reposition the objectives of the correctional centers, filter out the inmates who have been imprisoned for minor offenses, and as a consequence, also vote funds for existing alternative sentencing and non-custodial initiatives in the state. In Oyo State, this shared responsibility, now provided by the constitutional amendment, should be explored by stakeholders to canvass for support for the community service scheme. It is far less expensive to fund the community service scheme for convicts than build a prison to hold, feed, and maintain convicts and the facility itself. And this point should be emphasized to our lawmakers at appropriation. And so that constitutional amendment means that some states who have felt a need will have to budget funds for their own correctional facilities or associated agencies. Now, when they are doing that, that's the time to bring community service in, because they go in the same flow. So let's not look away when we hear that, oh, a bill has been sponsored to set up this, or a budgetary head is set up, is to the Lagos State government or your state government or any state government wants to build this, since now it's a concurrent legislative list item, then that's the time to bring in a community service scheme for additional funding. The Correctional Service Act of 2019, which repealed the Prisons Act of 1972, includes a provision giving the controller of correctional services, in conjunction with the superintendents in charge, the powers to reject inmates when the correctional center is at full capacity. I don't think we have ever exercised that power, because for obvious reasons. We should not wait till there are more incidents like the breach at Kuje prison before we provide operational structures for alternatives to imprisonment. This ought to be sufficient motivation for authorities to improve funding to the community service scheme. 4, perhaps by reason of the fact that the users of the scheme are convicts from the criminal justice system, this scheme might not be a low-hanging fruit for donor funds. One must therefore commend the JDPC for its consistent support and partnership with stakeholders in Oyo State to continue its advocacy in support of the scheme from year to year. As we again familiarize ourselves at this workshop with the scheme's goals, objectives, and implementation, perhaps it will assist funding if a greater effort is applied to generating studies that provide stakeholders and prospective partners with more information and data on the scheme's scope, target beneficiaries, and expected outcomes, identifying and providing a breakdown of attendant costs associated with implementing the scheme, categorizing costs into different subgroupings, such as personnel tasked with supervising the offender, equipment and materials. I heard Mr. Edo talking about they need cutlasses, this and that, equipment and materials needed by the offenders to carry out their community service, logistics, we are moving them from place to place, training costs for the personnel supervising, administrative costs, etc., will go a long way in generating interest in possible partners who may have existing structures or budgets to fund or accommodate some categories of cost that align with your objectives. JDPC has taken up this stakeholder engagement. They have organized a lot of training for stakeholders at their own cost. They are one of such civil society groups. But apart from JDPC, perhaps if we break down the variable areas of the community service scheme into cost heads, perhaps we might find other stakeholders who might say, hey, we can provide that bus that you need to do this. Oh, we can bring in, we already have a halfway house for drug addiction and all of that. We can provide this facility for communities. You begin to get those options because you have broken down your areas of operation and everybody can see a relevance in those areas. That will be another way to fund areas of engagement in the system. Today's stakeholder workshop by JDPC is one of such examples of a training cost element obviously carried by JDPC as part of its own objectives and contribution to the initiative. Many more civil society groups are out there whose objectives may equally align with other cost heads of the scheme if compartmentalized and pursued. I recall introducing one of such, Gavel, a few years ago to the judiciary. I urged the judiciary to reopen the conversation with them, JDPC and the Oyo State Judiciary, and other stakeholders here present for the successes recorded so far with respect to this scheme. This success is sufficient motivation to press on till we reach our optimal level of effective delivery on the system and truly create a corrective system for offenders. A change of name of the prison service in Nigeria to correctional services does not necessarily translate to corrective measures or a conducive environment being provided in our prisons for correction. But that is a debate for another day. However, we have seen the community service scheme offer better in correction, and we must do all in our powers to support and improve the scheme in Oyo State and in Nigeria, ensuring proper financing of criminal justice programs, as this is essential for maintaining the integrity of the justice system and promoting a just and equitable society. In closing, let me say this. One of the challenges that we have seen with custodial sentencing, and I'm sure our officers from the prison service will testify to that, is that we still have a high incidence of repeat offenders. When they exit the prison, in 1 year, they are back. In 6 months, he's been arrested and detained again. Am I correct? But in the community service, in 7 years, they've only had 1 repeat offender. There must be something to learn or unlearn that makes that possible. And I think it's important to be able to get better and maximize the strength that we have in a way that we can get things better done and ensure that the correction services is fully correctional. Now, I know that you also have your own funding challenges, by no means less. But then, it starts by this interagency engagement so that we learn from one another. What is it? It might be a psychology, it might be a philosophy that is being implemented that makes it work better in this environment than in that environment. But we're all together here as stakeholders to ensure that we can produce for Oyo State and indeed for Nigeria a better and a more efficient criminal administration of justice system. And I know we can do it, and I have every faith in this system that it can work better. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. The former Attorney General of Oyo State, Mr. Olusegun Abimbola, SAN, has just, sorry, please allow me to stand on existing protocols. Thank you. Has just delivered a beautiful paper. And I just couldn't help jotting things. Please, could we give him another round of applause? Thank you very, very much, sir. I don't know whether this session is we're going to be merging 2 parts of the program so that it will be more interactive. We've been listening to different things since morning, but let me first ask, is there any questions we would want or issues we want to?
I'm grateful for the opportunity to ask this question. I sincerely appreciate the speaker. We have learned so much. I wish to draw the attention of the speaker, with all due respect, sir, to...
Sorry, could you please tell us your name, designation, and your station?
Yes,
thank you.
My name is Modupeola Olagbero, Senior Magistrate, Grade 2, sitting at Iyagoko Court 6.
Thank you. Yes.
Please, may I draw your attention, sir, please, to section 421, sub 2 of the ACJL, which states that the fine to be given by the magistrate in particular should not exceed the fine prescribed by the law. And we have in the Oyo State laws when it comes to the jurisdiction of magistrates, we have limits. We have limits to the fines we can give according to our grade levels. So I would be suggesting that there should be an amendment because the fines are actually ridiculous. And I think these laws were made far back before the present economic circumstances that we have today.
And you are quite right. And that's why I said without prejudice to the laws that already ring fence the fines. But when those are most likely the laws passed yonder years. Most of the laws being passed, criminal provisions in laws in the current climate, don't cage us that much. It gives a certain measure of discretion. In that regard. Secondly, yes, we have jurisdictions for magistrates at different levels. Indeed, as we are evolving, community service came in 2016. The laws that govern the magistracy have been there since Western region. So definitely there will be a departure in terms of coverage. And of course, as you have said, there will be a need for some policy changes, legislative interventions, which I also mentioned, will have to happen to make some of these things workable. But you know, there must be an intentional demand on us to make it workable so that we can push for those interventions, whether by legislative amendments or by policy changes that will make things work better.
Thank you very much. I think that answered that question. Yes, there's another hand up.
Ladiran, State Facilitator, Civil Coalition for Good Governance. Mr. DPP, you made reference to the amendment bill pending before the House of Assembly. Though we do not have access to it, but it appears as if this lot of the roadmap, if they are not captured there, I want to advise that they are withdrawn and represent, because this is exactly what people are looking for. Thank you. If there's any comment on that, your reaction, please. DPP.
Thank you very much. That suggestion is being taken on board, that there may be a need for us to go over that law again and forward corrections so that it will be passed once and for all. I happen to also be a member of the committee that presented that law that the Honorable DPP mentioned earlier. We'll work on that, sir. Yes, sir.
Shegun Adepoju is my name. Yes. I'm the General Secretary, Civil Coalition for Good Governance. My question is, this is a scheme that has officers. We call them community service officers. I just want to know if they are staff of the court and if they are subject to the progressions of the staff of the High Court.
Yes, the staff of the High Court specially employed for that purpose, and yes, they do get their progression and promotions that went due.
Number two, in the documentary that we watch, the offenders that are serving were backing the camera. They are already a convict. I just want to know the reason why they were backing the camera.
Part of the aims of the community service scheme, sir, is to reduce and totally eradicate stigmatization, because that is one of the ills that bedevil convicts, ex-convicts. Now, when I say ex-convicts, people that have had to pass through the correctional facility there, and it makes it harder for them to be reintegrated into the society. So one of the aims of community service is to reduce that or eradicate that as much as possible. We do not know where, for instance, part of that documentary was recorded some years back. There are new sets of people here. You don't know where it would get to. The idea is that you go through community service, but your life is not put on hold. You still get to make something of yourself. So if we show their faces, if you see, we're all human beings, if you see him the next time, there's already a caveat in your mind that this person is a criminal, it will not help him. So that's
Thank you. The last one is this. Last year, the officers of the correctional services have their table here. The EFCC have their table here. I ask, because the police are key to our criminal justice system in Nigeria. They are the prosecutor for any criminal offense. I don't know what is their position in this scheme. I don't see them prominent in any of our stakeholders' meeting. Thank
They're
you.
here. Would the representative of the Commissioner of Police please kindly stand up, introduce yourself?
Sorry, I was actually drafted on this meeting late, and I wasn't aware of the mode of appearance. So I came in to stand in for the Commissioner of Police. I am the 2IC legal. Okay. So I came in just to step in while my boss is on an official assignment.
Thank you very much. I deliberately asked him to introduce himself because the police have been fully involved in community service. You don't see them here today. I think for some reason they have a new Commissioner of Police. They've had some series of meetings, and so they're not able to be here today. I was part of the training for police officers for community service. Sometimes they even would have had interface with the offenders when they see that they are what you call simple offenses that they are brought for, and they plead guilty. Sometimes they're the ones that would tell their lawyers that there's community service available if you're able to ask for it in court. So we work together. Most of the committees that we've had on community service that involve stakeholders, the OC Legal, Oyo State, has been a member, including that same committee that drafted the law that you were asking the DPP about earlier. So they're fully involved. Their absence today is because of maybe their own logistics on their side. Thank you very much, sir. Yes, please, more suggestions, questions?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I am Pastor Akao, representing Justices of Peace in Oyo State. I'm very grateful for the wisdom of the organizer who called on the inception Attorney General of this program. And I'm grateful for his laudable presentation. In fact, it shows that as the incubator of the program, he has knew what we should put in place before his exit because of political changes. He did well in the issue of how do we finance this program as a sustainable project. He has dealt well on the judiciary aspect, but it remains the co-participants in this program. I mean, the correctional centers officials, both custodian and non-custodian. Their financing, I believe, is subject to federal government being under the former arrangement of exclusive list. But now it has been made brought into concurrent legislation. I will call on the registrar to submit his program so that that concurrent nature, which is part of the state, let them know how to imbibe the sense of relativity for the prisons in the state to develop the key word ingenuity for sourcing, so that they can develop their ingenuity for sourcing. Part of it, I would say, is industrial liaison officer. These convicts can be drafted to work in some industry, apart from Ministry of Justice alone. The more reason why the public has never known about this non-custodian effect. If they've been going to many other places and they know that non-custodian center is already domesticated in Oyo State and is gaining by this, I believe we will get something to be sustaining this project, because the industries where they serve, we have to pay X, Y, and that will be a better source of revenue for the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. We will take that on board, sir. Yes.
I will say good afternoon to everybody, and I have to appreciate all the speakers. They have done surgical operation to why we are here. I have to pick from the last speaker's statement, because that was what was in my mind about how to get down to the grassroots. Because crime is about the community. But within what the last speaker said, he has spoken that most of the people that matters have been involved. Even the justice of the peace people at the lower level. But I'm about the security of the officers guiding these people serving. Among the somebody who said 2 officers to about 40 people. That is dangerous. So I will suggest a sort of collaborative effort. That's what the president is doing now. In the Boko Haram issue, it has been the army. They are now incorporating the police, even the customs. Please, let there be collaborative effort, even including the community leaders, the chairman of the community, the officers of the community. Let them be involved, so that, most of the officers you are sending with these people, they may not even know the geography of the area in which you are sending them to. But if the community people are involved and these people want to run away, they will be able to trace them out quickly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. On that, sir, we've been through JDPC, at least I've taken part in 2 programs where they invite community development associations. I've taken part in training community development associations in Isai, in Shaki, and other towns. We've had at least 3 or 4 engagements with them, and I've been asked to come and speak about it. What I would do is to also encourage JDPC as a forum to bring us together, especially now that we are moving towards, God helping us in the judiciary, moving towards taking the offenders to go and serve in their locality. There's no way we'll be able to effectively do that without engaging the Landlords Association to assist us there. That's one. Secondly, we've had a wonderful collaboration that is still ongoing with the non-custodial part of the correctional services. They work with us, with our officers. They also have the same problem of staffing, but they come in uniform, so that's a great help because we work together. The non-custodial correctional officers and our own community service officers work together to monitor the offenders, and that has been a great help because you don't argue with somebody that is in uniform. Our own officers go in the jacket there, so the issue of security so far has been manageable there. We're just hoping that we get more staff from both sides, for the non-custodial officers, from the correctional services, and also on our part. But that collaboration has worked beautifully for about 3 or 4 years now and has lessened the security risk. But we would also take on board your suggestions, sir, and engage more of the CDAs and the landlord associations. I'm sure JDPC is also noting it down. Mrs. Iptara is at the back. I'm sure she's also noting it down so that we can do more on that, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. Please permit me to stand on the existing protocol. So far, I will say it's been an educative session, and all the suggestions even made, they all boil down to the fact that the issue of funding should be properly looked into. And of course, when there is more money and there is more collaboration, there will be more facilities, more manpower, more security, more information given to the society as a whole. So I would like to add a few points towards my Lord, the Honorable Silk, has submitted. And this goes in the area of funding. Well, I would just say, just like I'm just trying to streamline in summary what he has said and then add a bit of information. Creating a roadmap for sustaining financing of the community service, it involves mainly identifying and implementing strategies to generate and manage funds effectively. So the first step, according to my own understanding, is we have to assess the current financial situation. Where is the money coming from? How is the money being spent? What are the necessary areas to spend it on? I mean, give percentages to priorities. That way we know that if we do this, that way we know that if we do one thing, a percentage of it goes into this area, into that area. So that is why I say assessing the current financial situation. The second step, I think, is define the goals and objectives of community service program. And that is what we've been doing here. What are the things that are intended to be done? And what do we want to achieve? Mrs. Oguni has been gracious enough, along with Mr. Idowu, to let us know what it is the intention of these programs are, what is the end result they're trying to achieve. Then you apportion percentages to funding to such things. And that also helps us to know how we want to finance the situation. Then a third step would be diversifying funding sources. Like the Honorable Silka said, we concentrate. Thank you. We should not just concentrate on one means of financing. Somebody here has said something about collaboration of departments. On our own side, we have done a lot. On the side of JDPC, I know that they have depended on grants and they can still depend on more. On the side of all the organizations that are stakeholders in this, in such forum, we can think of, okay, what can we do at our end? How can we make this thing better? Is there a way that the prisons can afford to give us vehicle? You know, I'm sorry, we are all in this together. Can they provide all these security vans to transport these people to their different localities of effecting their punishments and all that? And then we can also look into more staffing, like Mrs. Oguni has said, coming from their end. So, all this thing goes into funding. So if one department takes charge of this, the other department takes charge of this, JDPC alone cannot do everything. So, like I said, diversify funding sources. Then a fourth step, develop a funding plan, like what we have here, creating a forum where the stakeholders can sit together and we can heads. Create a comprehensive funding plan that outlines specific tactics, timeline, and responsibilities. So that is one of the things we are doing here. There could be also other programs that can be done too, nationally and locally, in respect of this. And that way we are able to reach the grassroots, we're able to reach all the other people that these things involve, even the community itself, even the offenders themselves, even the ones that have gone through this system can come back and come and give us inputs of how to do that. We can create, for example, services of the offenders can be given out on a paying basis. Like, okay, you want somebody to come and cut the grass in the federal ministry at secretariat there? Yes, at a fee. You want them to come and do something at a fee, like, to generate for the community service itself. I also have here as a fifth step, cultivate donor relationship. Whoever donates, whoever brings something forward, we should always acknowledge. You know, I mean, sorry, I'm very local. Maybe I don't know how to say that in English, but I will try and translate. When I give to you today and you say thank you to me, I will readily want to give more tomorrow. So if the federal government, if the state government, if the grants suppliers can give us something, let us cultivate a way of getting back to them promptly to say a big thank you. That way they want to give us more funding in the future. A sixth step I identified here is explore social enterprise opportunities. And that's why I said, okay, like all these our past offenders have gone through the system. One was telling that he has engaged himself in a particular service now. We can do, they call it, where we have stalls where they can come and sell their products. We encourage them and all that, you know. And for them to have that stall, they will definitely pay some amounts, and other people too will come. It's like a fun fair. Let me say a fun fair, but we can call it something else. It doesn't necessarily have to be a fun fair. That way, we can implement that to raise funds too on the local level. When they do that in Ibadan, they do it in promotion, they do it here. They do, if it is Gari that they are into, then they bring their Gari for sale with other marketers. Something will be generated, you know. So that way, there will be another source of local funding. Implement financial management practice. Of course, a central pool will be in charge of all these generated funds. And there must be continual information given back to Iyeto Walere, Iyeto Dadere. This is what we are still expecting. So when we do that, definitely it will go a long way. Then I have an eighth step. Building partnerships and collaboration. I've mentioned that before. Collaborate with other organizations, both within our social sector and beyond, to leverage resources and expertise. Seek partnership with businesses, education institutions, community organizations, like somebody just said now, and government agencies. These collaborations can lead to shared funding opportunities, joint projects, and mutual support. Number 9, monitor and evaluate progress. Yes, we have a long way now. Where are we now? What are we still to? Where should we, once there is that and there's continuous report by committee to the committee, not agency, like the Honorable Sid said, to the stakeholders, people will be encouraged to do more. And then on the 10th level, adopt and innovate, current with new trends. That which I've said today might change in the society that comes. We are going tech. I mean, there are more technology. So all the things, these things don't even have to be, they don't have to be physical anymore. We can do them on our phones. We can do them on the internet. We can have websites, you know. And through awareness, people are ready to collaborate and chip in for the funding of this program. Remember, developing sustainable financing for the community is an ongoing process. It requires education, flexibility, and proactive approach to secure necessary resources to support and expand the scheme. If we take all these 10 points one by one, we add flesh and blood to it, I'm sure the community service will go a long way. I wish JPDC and all the stakeholders a successful program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we have a round of applause for her? Yes. Thank you so much. The suggestions will be, I'm sure they have noted.
All right, I want to pick just a quick suggestion too, and then I will hand over to my learned friend from the Correctional Center. All right, I have just a few suggestions. Number one, the first thought that came to me is that I'm aware community service is under the judiciary as stated by the learned Silk. Yes. And the first came to me is, can we really fund the community service scheme outside the judiciary? That's the first question that came to my mind. Since they are one, there is sanity twins, magistrates work on it, the sentence, and they do all of that. If, depending on the answer we give, it means that if we are talking about community budgeting, in a way, we are also talking about judicial autonomy and financing. And we are all aware, I think, was it last year or 2 years ago, the former President Muhammadu Buhari signed the Executive Order 10 about judicial autonomy. And that itself is another thing for another day. But we begin to wonder that even though we have that Executive Number 10 that has been signed, little has been done in most state judiciary. And up to now, it's still a big problem. Up to now, in most states, I don't know, maybe in your state too, we still have the governors still present cards to our judges, despite the fact that, there are two different arms of government. We still have issues with judiciary presenting their own budget, even at the executive, even though they are the same state government. So how do we navigate this? Because all this goes to the budget of judiciary itself. Because I have a belief that if something is done about judicial autonomy, and judiciary gets money, yes, I know that we get money in parts of the state government because we pay fee in those things, probate fees, it goes to cover some state government. Now, how do we now make it? And judiciary is an independent arm. And that was why the executive order came into being. How do we marry the two of them together? Okay, because I believe if there is an increment in the funding of judiciary as a whole, definitely there will be an increment also in the community service overhead budget. That's number one. Number two is that, the learned DCR, Mr. Kinyeli has mentioned this. I just want to emphasize on this about, I used to wonder, it happens in Ogun State, even presently, the judiciary, I think judiciary and Ministry of Lands, I think they are doing something and they collaborated with some donor agencies, okay, international donor agencies. State government seeks for grants, even abroad. And there is nothing saying that, and in fact, I'm aware because I also work in the development sector, there are some donor agencies that the only people they can give money to are state government. They can't even give it to people like JDPC because you are not states. And Ogun State is doing it. We can also understudy the way Ogun State is doing it so that we can get grants, even as judiciary, to help us, because they believe that if it is done by the states, then definitely states can help better, maybe than even NGOs like ours. So we can get grants from those donor agencies for specific purposes, even for community service. And I think that's another good way that this could also be resolved. Then we also did a research some time ago here in JDPC Ibadan. And we had a very funny discovery. I will not say everything here, but we discovered that in a way, even judiciary, we need to work about the way we do our budgeting. Okay, because definitely it is what we present to the state governments. That the state government say, okay, you are presenting 10 naira, we are going to give you 5 naira because of their own issues. But sometimes when we ourselves, we need 50 naira, and we are presenting the fact that we are presenting 20 naira to them. Or when we say we need 50 naira, and last year was 2022, when fuel was maybe 1 something, okay, as a journalist says, fuel was 1 something, and we wrote our budget in 2022 that we need 30 naira. And in 2023 to 2024 budget, we are still writing the same 30 naira, even when fuel is now 620. And the state government will still tell us that no, they cannot give us 100 million, they can only give us 70 million or 30 million. Definitely we are going to have a problem. So we need to also think about, we ourselves, we write our budget, the way what we also write for state government to be able to know what they give us when the time comes. Then I think, last but not the least, I was in court either day before yesterday, that was on Tuesday, I was in court for something else. And I think I went to file something, and somebody just said, JDPC, what you are doing is not good. I was even shocked. What did you do? He said, I don't like what you are doing. What's the problem? The person said, all those people we are giving community service. I was like, thank God. It's not that we did something bad. All those people we are giving community service, those Yahoo boys, I mean, you should not be giving them community service. They are just coming back. That even overheard one of them, that is a Yahoo guy, and I think prosecuted by EFCC, and was saying that they have confiscated his car, but he still has one more car. He was on phone. And he was calling someone. He was on phone and he was calling someone. They confiscated some of his properties during the plea bargaining. I think he still has one property that was not part of the plea bargaining arrangement. And that one was calling his friend and say, when she motor can see me, motor hear me, if you see me, she don't next week, she don't next week, and the person was making a call to his friend. And when the community service officer that was there at that time heard it and reported the matter to the judge, and of course something was done about it, and I'm happy about that. But we also need to think about all these issues. That, because I remember when this scheme actually started, it was on minor offenses initially when it started. But definitely we felt that they should not just be doing plea bargaining alone, but they should also be having this community service. I'm sure that we also need to have discussion about how do we make sure that this naturally achieves objective, especially for financial crimes that our agency, that the CC prosecutes, so that it will not defeat its purpose. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fola. I don't know whether any of the people on the high table want to say some things to what he said before we go to, okay. I'll just answer on a few points. Those are suggestions they've been taking on board there. On the issue of it being out of the community service scheme being taken out of the judiciary and being owned, it's something we would explore. But the example of Lagos that we went to, and that was one of the things that made us decide here that it will be under the judiciary, is that in Lagos State is on its own. And most of the judiciary don't have recourse to it. It's just once in a while. And it was not working. That's why it appears as though your state is the first one to actually have it fully functional. Because we found out that one of the major issues, most of the judges that interviewed in Lagos were not even really aware of it. They just thought it was something that was an adjunct of the Ministry of Justice. One place there that was not serious. So they were mainly using it for tribunals and traffic offenses, like that there. It was not something that the judiciary bought into. And when it comes to sentencing, since it's the judiciary that they're the ones that sentence, it is those ones that you make available to them. So I would say that for us in Oyo State is working. What we would advocate is what the Learned Silk, our former Attorney General, has suggested, that a committee be set up for it, which is within the purview of the law, and even the new law, non-custodial laws that were going on. So that will be there. For your other issues, we will take it on board and seek to improve the EFCC has been, how do I say it, has been of great assistance, because the reason why they started bringing those young people that were giving plea bargain is also because, you see, when you think about the import of the, most times we tend to focus on this person has committed an offense. Let's punish him or we can punish him. We do not think beyond that. And non-custodial options go beyond that. They look at reformation. They look at the age of the offender. They look at what can become of the offender later if given the opportunity. I'm glad you said that the CSO, the community service officer that overheard went to report to the judge. That's what they're trained to do, and that's what they normally do there. But the EFCC on their own part also do a great job, because everything that can be traced to the crime is taken back from them before they even bring them to court on the issue of plea bargain. And most times when they do plea bargain, it's because they know that most times when they're students or they're young, so that his life is not wasted. We need to think about that other aspect too and balance it. We shouldn't say, okay, that person, with all due respect, I'm praying that all of us, our children, our relatives will do well, but could easily be your relative. Would you want his life completely destroyed because of peer pressure? That he got himself, yes, he messed up, yes, he committed an offense, but that should not be the end of his life. So we need to balance it when it comes to dispensation of justice, when it comes to sentencing. Before EFCC will bring them to court on plea bargain, believe me, they have done everything they can possibly, they possibly could do there, because I've had opportunity to engage with them. The former head of legal, Ibadan, Dr. Ben Ubi, and we started this together, and the other legal officers that are with EFCC. I don't know whether EFCC has something to say to us. We would love to hear from you. Yes, please. Please introduce yourself. After them, please.
My name is Chidi Okoli. I must be succinct with what I want to say. First, I acknowledge and recommend greatly the forensic lecture we received from the learned senior advocate. It's great. I will specifically say that what we're looking at now is sustainable finance for that scheme, the community service scheme. We should not position it like the Lagos pattern. Here, it has strong appendage to the judiciary. Yes. So let us look at the making of the law. Every organization, every live wire of every organization is dependent on the law, and it functions with the law. So if we can go back to the State Assembly to make a law, creating that scheme and making it an appendage to the judiciary, so that the financing will be sustainable. Why I have suggested this is this. If, like, law enforcement business is to stop crime, if we start succeeding in that process and we start stopping crime and such offenses that occasion community service starts going away, that will mean that we may not have people to punish. And it will challenge the live wire of the scheme. So there must be sustainable process for the financing of the scheme. And that will take us back to the law. Just like the learned senior advocate rightly suggested, we should go back to the drawing board, which is the law. And that is where we will create patterns that will sustain the life of the scheme and allow it to grow pari passu with the judiciary. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's under the judiciary, actually. We'll just follow what the Learned Silk has said and give it a separate budgetary head. I think that's what will work for us. Non-custodial legal officer.
Good afternoon. All protocols are duly observed. My name is Oni George. I'm the OC Legal for Nigerian Correctional Service. I have comments to make and also to ask a few questions. First and foremost, I'm very pleased to be here today. I don't think I was present last year. So, but we've all realized that one of the major problems regarding the robust implementation of the community service scheme is funding. So now, it takes me to my question. What is happening, or what has happened to the non-custodial punishment law of Oyo State 2021? There's a draft bill. I know I'm opportune to be one of the members of the committee, DPP, and Mrs. Ogoni too. I don't know what has happened to the draft bill. The last time I checked, we're told that it had undergone the second reading. And I understand very well that one of the salient provisions in that draft bill relates to the funding custodial as a whole. There is a provision for a non-custodial fund that deals with how to get fund budgetary provisions for non-custodial. We all know, by virtue of Section 37 of the Nigerian Correctional Service Act, it also deals with the fact that the non-custodial as a whole, which is an alternative sentencing option, extends beyond community service. It also includes parole, probation, restorative justice measures. And the DPP is also one of the members of the parole board in the state. There are certain suggestions that have been made. If we are looking at addressing community service and to make it sustainable, I think we should ensure it's speedy enactment of the non-custodial draft bill into the law in Oyo State. Because I understand that the law, when enacted, is going to harmonize the provisions of the community punishments law and also the novel provisions of the non-custodial. So I would like to know what is happening to with the draft bill at the moment. And also, the Leonard Silk spoke about halfway houses for the treatment of some of addicted offenders, you know, and all. And I know that my Lord Honorable CJ retired spoke about the siting of halfway houses in Oyo State. I think somewhere in Ibadan. So, but up until now, I think it has been pipeline for over 2 years. So, it will be perfect for us to see how we can ensure that these things come to being. Yes. Because I also realize that even in the non-custodial draft bill 2021, it also made provision for stipends for some of these. So you don't have to spend your money to take care of offenders. You know, where is offender, where are they going to serve some of the industries, you know, then how to showcase some of their work so they'll be able to make money for themselves, and also how to be gainfully so that they will not go back to their crimes. That's a provision for the National Directorate for Employment in the states. So these are things that are going to handle all of our issues. Thank you
very much. For the law, I know that the law is still awaiting passage. Earlier on, I was discussing with the DPP that we would have to make some moves with our respective establishments so that that law can be passed as soon as possible. The issue of the halfway house that was being considered is still on, and I'm sure that we'll have a feedback on that too very soon. Thank you so much for your comments. Any other comments, suggestions? That will be the last two, please, because of our time. So Baba and the sister on...
I'm back again, man. I want to suggest that before we leave, let us set up a lobby group in respect of the bill before the House. Lobby group by the stakeholders, so that it should not be judiciary and JDPC alone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll take that on board. Yes, the lady on my left. This lady, the first person. Oh, thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, my own contribution is...
your name?
My name is Bukola Kindolire.
Okay, and your
I'm the program manager for Justice Development and Peace Center, Lagos.
Good, beautiful. Yes.
Okay, when we look at internal generated revenue in link with how to sustain the community service project, the process of crime that the EFCC confiscates, how possible can the state government partner with EFCC? Some of those proceeds can actually be diverted to sustain the community service project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know what EFCC will have to say with that.
We don't want to react to it.
Does EFCC want to respond, or you just want to let it lie? Do you want to respond to that, or we should just let it slide?
Okay, you know what we're just simply saying, you know we are in a different frequency.
Yes.
So these frequencies cannot meet, never. So you understand what I mean by that? What I'm simply saying is that a federal organization, we are at our own pedigree. You are organizing something directly attached to your state, to state judiciary. So we can only And maybe how we can also bring more cases to you so that you have more people to.
I didn't want to be seen. Thank you very much, sir. I didn't want to be seen to be holding brief for EFCC. But you see, what he just said is the truth. Federal will not give you a dime of their money to run a state establishment, except there's been, maybe a meeting, an agreement, a collaboration between the state government and themselves on that score. So that's how it is. Can we give ourselves a round of applause, please? I'm sure that from all the comments and suggestions, we can see that all of us have been engaged in this program and we've paid real good attention. I appreciate us all. JDPC. Thank you very much. All our suggestions have been taken and noted down. They're going to form part of the communique for this program that we're going to pass across and will help us in the next stage of implementation for the community service scheme. Thank you so much for your engagement. Really appreciate you. God bless you.
I would like to say a very big thank you to everyone that has been present here today. Like I said earlier, your presence really means a lot to us. I would also like to recognize the presence of Mr. Odewumi Kayode, the Deputy Controller of Corrections in care of non-custodial services, Oyo State Command. He has worked with us closely over the years. Sir, we do not take you for granted. Thank you very much. I would like to also say a very big thank you, because if you are not here today, we don't know what we would have done. To every member of the judiciary, to every member of the magistrate, corrections, sister JOPs, we also do not take you for granted. Thank you very much. Our director, Father Jerome, I want to say a very big thank you to you. You've been a source of support to us over the years. Thank you very much, Father. Our Chief of Staff, in the person of Barrister Ibitara, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your input over the years. Thank you so much. I would also like to say thank you to Barrister Fola Aweyemi. Thank you very much. Thank you for your support. Our community service officers, please, where are you? Our community service officers, please, where are you? Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. To our DCR community service, Mr. Idowu, thank you very much, sir. To the DCR probate and special duties, in the person of Mrs. Ogunrin, thank you very much, sir. Thank you, everybody. I cannot overemphasize how grateful we are. Thank you so much. And so we'll be having our closing prayer. Is any Muslim? Okay, Alaja, please can you help us with the closing prayer? Thank you.
We thank Almighty Allah for bringing this program to an end peacefully, and we are grateful for Him for everything, for all the deliberations as well. We pray to Almighty Allah to please protect and guide us, each and every one of us, when we go back to our bases. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll be standing up to take the national anthem. But please, let's gather outside for a group photograph, quickly and briefly. And do not leave without your lunch. So you can drop your bags. Please, let's move outside for a quick group photograph. Thank you very much.
Your hand, please.
Please, are you joining the picture?